We're following the effects of the oil spill from the beginning and actually before the spill, because we have samples from before the spill that we've followed through different levels of organization in the marsh, from fiddler crabs all the way up to food webs. And we've been following it since 2000. Our funding only started in 2011, so 2011 to 2016 at this point. One of the reasons that the Deepwater Horizon spill had dispersants added to it to try to break up the spill was to keep that oil from entering into the coastal marshes, because the marshes are so important for the integrity of the coast, for fisheries, for recruitment, for buffering storms. So the marshes are seen and actually are very important parts of the coastal ecosystem. So marshes have had oil spilled on them before. There have been some short-term, not so many long-term, but this was a massive amount of oil that came into coastal Louisiana, and so we wanted to, of course, document how the oil had affected the ecosystem. We have a lot of investigators. We have people looking at the oil transformation over time, how it changes in compounds as it degrades. We have physical oceanographers and modelers who are looking at the currents offshore and how it brought the oil into Barataria Bay. We have people who are looking at marsh health. In other words, are the plants healthy? Do they have below ground vegetation? Are they falling apart from erosion? So just the condition of the marsh. We also have people looking at the processes, the chemical processes and the biological processes that happen in the marsh. We have people looking at the marsh fish and how they've been affected. We have people looking at seaside sparrows and how they've been affected, and even, you gotta love them, marsh rice rats have even been part of our study. So we're looking at all these different, and not just the animals themselves, but how they interact with their ecosystem and how they interact with each other. This is a very different spill, and we've had a lot of effort into examining it, but there are some very obvious, acute, immediate mortalities. There is some recovery over some period of time, maybe 2-3 years, and there is some recovery over 5-6 years. And there are still signals in the marsh and in the organisms that depend on it that supersede, it's past 6 years now, and we expect to see that for quite some time. We also expect to see maybe the baseline conditions of the marsh change with regard to what they were before the oil spill. We found some conditions that weren't affected, and that's important information for a future oil spill. We also have a long-term data set now that could provide a baseline in case something like this happens again. And we also have, not particularly our consortium, but others looking at the marsh system, different kinds of ways that they treated the marsh. They either mechanically scraped it, or they manually cleaned it and they planted Spartina, or they didn't plant Spartina. And the differences in recovery in those areas are quite different. We have some exciting stuff going on next year. We have these mesocosms, large tanks that are at the Lumcon Marine Center in Cocodrie. They're going to be filled with marsh plants. They're going to be oiled from heavy to light to none with controls. And many of the things that we're doing out in the marsh right now, we're going to be doing in those mesocosms. And we expect that information to be very helpful in future oil spills.